Now, as you dig deeper, you might also consider having more filters or maybe more rows added, row headings added, maybe region-wise you need it. That's absolutely perfect. Not an issue there. Now, let's come back to our previous worksheet over here. We had everything region-wise, we had the total sales. But let's say I want to create another pivot table and I would have a filter based on product category. So we click here, insert pivot table, I click new. Now this time I want a product category as the filter. So we have this. Now we say country and then the amount. Well, we can also have the region. That's absolutely fine here. That's just before the country. That's perfect. Now I would like to see this in a tabular format. So I go to design menu, report layout, show in tabular form. This looks better. All right. Now if I need the subtotals, I'll leave them as it is. Else I might just want to remove subtotals. That subtotal region. We have this. Okay, I'll just undo this. And here it says count of amount. I don't want the count, but I need the total value. So here under this, I click value field settings. Sum is what I need. Custom name that you want to give. Maybe instead of sum of amount, you might want to give total amount. Click OK. And here we have this. Now here by default you see the sales for all the regions at one place. Let's have it by different dates. So we have transaction date as separate column as well. And we have the transactions for each month separately. Let's select the column headings and just adjust the columns. Yes, here we have. Now considering this, let me just filter this with only CFL. I click CFL, I can only see data for CFL. I'll close this tab. And this data is only for CFL. Now if I were to click on FL, it's only for FL that we have the data. So we see major chunk of revenue is from LEDs. Now it would be quite inconvenient for us to have manually select each one at a time. How about having them readily done? That means a separate pivot table for each product category. Well, that's very much doable. Okay, and we call it as report filter pages. So for this, first you need to ensure that you have a filter in hand over here. The filter is available. And then you go to pivot table analyze. Under this you have pivot table here, under which you have options. For some of you, you might see the options button over here. Well, in this case, I don't see it. I have to click on pivot table over here, and then we have options. Under options, I would say show report filter pages. Click on this. Now it asks you show all report filter pages of product category because we have our filters by product category. Show all report filter pages. So I click on this, okay. And you see I have a separate worksheet for CFL. I have a separate worksheet for LED as well. And the one sheet 4 that was for FL, which was already selected. In case if I would have selected all, I would have had a separate worksheet for FL as well. Let's try this out again. This time I select all. I remove these two worksheets, CFL and LED. I delete them. We have this product category selected to all. Again, we go to pivot table, options, generate, show report filter pages. Click OK. And here you have one for CFL, one for FL, and one for LED, and then sheet 4, which was for all. That's the macro level view. Now further, whenever you refer to any cell within a pivot table, let's say for example this over here, if I want to refer to this cell anywhere in the workbook, I would say equal and click on this. Now by default, when I click on this, the get pivot data function is initiated. And we can see a lot of data over here, the entire reference indicating this particular cell. You hit enter, it does refer. But let's say I do not want to use the get pivot data function. I just want a simple equal to, something like this. If I have this data over here, I put an equal and link to this, and it just shows a simple reference. If I want something like this while referring to a pivot data within the pivot table, I can click on the pivot table and we have pivot table analyze. Under pivot table, we have options, and under options, we have generate pivot data. This can be unchecked. The moment you uncheck it, now you press equal and select this. You see, it's a proper reference that comes up. Now at times you might not want to adjust you might not want the column width to adjust automatically depending on the data width. Let's say here I want them to shrink, and this looks sensible, maybe slightly bigger. And yes, this looks appropriate. Now come what may, every time there is change in data or the pivot table is refreshed, I do not want these columns to automatically adjust, because if I were to right click and refresh, they automatically adjust that. I don't want that to happen. So first I'll set the column width. Let's say this appears fine. Now I'll just right click on the pivot table, anywhere on the pivot table, go to pivot table options. Under layout and formats, we have auto fit column width on update. I uncheck this and click OK. Now this time if I refresh, nothing would happen. The data might change, but the column width would not change.